Last season on New Adventure Films was tough. I had a lot of setbacks, but I learned a lot and had a lot of great rides as well. In March, I did a lot of gear testing to see what would work and what would not work. I did most of the testing near Soldiers Pass on the west side of Utah Lake. This area is amazingly beautiful, and I learned a lot about filming myself. The first test I did was using my Mavic 3 Cine drone's active track. I found that although the drone could follow me at slower speeds, under 25 miles per hour with collision avoidance on, the only way it could film me at a faster speed was in sports mode with the collision avoidance off, which means it could crash into a hill at 50 miles per hour since I was not controlling it myself. I've listed my solutions to all the problems I was having in my 2024 season and what gear I bought to fix those problems in the last chapter of this video. So if you don't want to see the season recap, feel free to skip to that part of the video. In April, I was continuing my testing, but I was just not feeling great. So I went to the doctor's office and got a CT scan, which revealed that I had a serious but slower growing form of cancer, and that the doctor would not be able to tell me how bad it was until they operated on me. I did not want to stall the rest of my season videos, so I planned to have the surgery the first week of December 2024 and hope for the best. In June, and due to the cancer diagnosis, I thought about creating a new channel called 120 Days, where I did all the things I wanted to do in the next 120 days. Why 120 days? Because that may have been all the time I had left prior to my scheduled surgery. So I packed my gear and went to Otter Creek, Utah to go on a fishing trip to try and catch the biggest freshwater fish I had ever caught. Here's a portion of that video. This is how my adventure started, but it's not how it ended. My name is James. Let's start with that for now. And I've decided in the next 120 days, I'm going to do all the things that I have always wanted to do. For my first adventure, I decided to catch the biggest freshwater fish that I ever had. I have been fishing since I was 6 years old and have caught many fish, but nothing very large in size. So I packed up all my gear and went to Otter Creek in southern Utah and camped in a remote part of the lake. The first night was rough. It rained and the wind was fierce, but the next day it was sunny and beautiful. I caught a couple of rainbow trout, but not any records for me, and I let them go. In fact, the largest freshwater fish I've ever caught was a few years ago, measuring about 12 inches. Later that night, an old man came to my campsite and asked me if I was having any luck. His name was Bruce, and he said he was camping nearby and saw my campfire and decided to say hi. Bruce told me that if I wanted to catch a big fish, I needed to go to Fish Lake, about a 40-minute drive from my location. I had been to Fish Lake many times before with my father and by myself, but never had any luck. Also, since it was early in the year, I thought the lake would still be frozen over. He told me that the lake had thawed and said that I should give it a try. I thanked him and he walked off into the dark. I thought about it a lot that night and decided that I would give Fish Lake one more try. The next morning I was up at 4:30 a.m. It was a dangerous time to be driving, as there were deer all over the road, and I had to drive slow, even though I was excited to get to my fishing spot before the sun came up. When I arrived at the parking area, the temperature was 26 degrees. I knew it would be cold, so I had dressed in layers. I packed all my gear up and headed for the Lakeshore Trail. The first quarter of the trail was easy, across a grassy field, but it quickly became a rocky, rough trail through the dense, cold forest with fallen trees, fences, and steep inclines. As the sun came up over the mountain, I finally arrived at my fishing spot, about 100 yards shoreline where the water was about 20 feet deep right off the shore. I was excited to get a line in as quickly as possible. Fish Lake has some of the biggest catch records in the state, and though I've never caught one, there was always a chance. I was all alone, without a boat on the lake or a person in sight. After I got my fishing gear together, I cast out my first line. Then after a few minutes, I started casting a spinner. What I did not realize until I put this video together was that my set line in the foreground was getting bites while I was casting my reel. I should have been watching my line. I finally put bait on my second line, then came the wait. I waited and waited with only a few bites the first few hours. Just as I put my Insta 360 Ace Pro camera in the water to see if there were any fish nearby, I got a huge tug on one of my lines. I knew right away that I had hooked something bigger than I'd ever felt before. It had already taken out a lot of line before I even picked up my fishing pole to try to reel it in. I kept my line high in the air to try to keep it from getting cut on the rocks jutting out from the shore. But for every foot I reeled in, whatever was on the other end of my line took 3 more. This is a monster that I was looking for. It is huge. Beautiful flake. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Wow. Just what I was looking for. Beautiful colorings. All right, I gotta let him go before he gets too tired. Bye-bye. There he goes, back into the deep. I fished for a couple more hours, enjoying the beautiful day, and caught a few trout, but nothing like the splake. Anyway, I had already accomplished what I had set out to do, to catch the biggest freshwater fish I ever had, and the splake was by far the biggest. As I watched the clouds pass over the lake and the late afternoon sun glint on the lake, I started to think about what my next adventure would be. In July, I started having problems with my 2015 Dodge Ram truck. To be fair, it had over 190,000 miles on it, and it was starting to have engine and electrical problems. I figured that if I was going to do these adventure videos, I needed an adventure vehicle besides my adventure bike. So I traded it in for a Jeep Gladiator Willie. I'm calling him Will. After the fishing trip, I decided that the first adventure video was too depressing and I decided to go back to what I originally wanted to create, a motorcycle riding video. The first motorcycle adventure video I had planned was in July, with a ride through the canyons by the gold mines in Marysvale, Utah. I had planned a camping trip with my son Logan just prior to that, and I was camping in Kimberly, Utah, near Marysvale, waiting for his arrival. But just the day before he was supposed to arrive, I woke up in the morning to smoke in the air. Not a good thing to happen while you're camping in a remote access area in the mountains. So I quickly packed up all of my gear and went back into town and found out that a very large fire had started a few miles away from where I had been camping, near the Silver King mine, most likely due to a lightning strike, and it was spreading quickly throughout the mountain range. I had to change my camping plans with my son, and I met him in another location about 50 miles away on the other side of the freeway from the fire. So the Marysvale Gold Adventure never happened, as the fire continued to burn for months, devastating the area.
So we tried to go gold mining up at Kimberly, and what happened?
Caught on fire.
Caught on fire, and the whole mountain was on fire, and so we ended up having to, all the roads were blocked, and we ended up having to come back and ride the motorcycle back up to our other campsite. So we'll have to try this again sometime when there's not a major forest fire going on.
Then in August, I went on the adventure of a lifetime, creating my first successful motorcycle adventure video to Onion Creek in Moab. I had been wanting to ride Onion Creek ever since I found it 5 years ago, but the timing was never right. I saw so many beautiful scenic places and had a lot of fun. I had a lot of trials and rough roads to cross, but in the end, it finally all came together. At this point, I knew making motorcycle adventure videos was what I wanted to do and started planning new adventures. Feeling overconfident for my first motorcycle riding video, the second adventure I did was a ride near Strawberry Reservoir by Current Creek Peak. But I was not prepared for this ride. The first ride had worked out so well, I got lazy and just went for it. At first it was warm and sunny, but the weather turned cold quickly, about 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was not even wearing a jacket. I got lost several times, even with my GPS, and to make matters worse, I only had a 2.3-gallon gas tank on my adventure bike, and after several wrong turns, I was running out of gas and it was getting dark. By the grace of God, I found my way back to my Jeep just as it was getting too dark to see the road and I was running completely out of gas. So the Strawberry Reservoir adventure was a solid failure. On October 2nd, I went on my next motorcycle adventure trip to an area around Cleveland Reservoir. I had been on a photo shoot at Cleveland Reservoir in the fall season before, and it was stunning. But unlike my last motorcycle adventure, I did a lot more planning. My plan was to do the 70-mile loop from Cleveland Reservoir to Joes Valley Reservoir, where I would camp and fish, then back through the high mountain pass, stopping at about 6 or 7 lakes along the route. I also planned on doing a review of some of my new motorcycle-friendly camping equipment, like my Net Zero tent, air mattress, and modular chair. These items were all extremely compact and light, and my plan was to get to my camping destination, then do a review of them. The area around Cleveland Reservoir in the fall is some of the most beautiful forest you will ever see. Golden aspens line the road and the surrounding hills. There are many lakes, ponds, and reservoirs along the route. The trip started off great, and I got some nice drone shots of the lakes and surrounding forest. I also practiced holding my selfie stick out facing towards me while I rode my motorcycle, but it was so difficult that I scratched that idea and used my drone. Unfortunately, when I arrived at Joes Valley Reservoir, and all along the way, there were a lot of campers, and the campground was completely full when I arrived, and unlike the maps I saw on Google, it looked like a small resort city, something I did not see in the aerial views. Also, the fall colors were mostly gone, which was the main reason for doing this adventure video in the first place. I've been living in Utah for years and had never seen the fall colors go away so quickly. October 2nd is usually the height of fall, but not this year. So I decided to turn around and ride back to my Jeep. I like remote scenic places without a lot of people, and this was not it. On October 8th, my final adventure video for the season was to KYHV Peak in Provo Canyon. This was a success as the fall colors were still in bloom and I got some great drone and helmet cam shots of the ride up and back. It was a real fun ride with only some minor setbacks. The first setback was that I had to wait a couple of hours to complete my ride because a guy in a quad went off the side of the road and had to be airlifted to a hospital. He ended up being okay, but I missed getting the best light at the top of the mountain. Second, I lost my back-facing Insta360 Ace Pro camera when it fell off the mount while I was riding the mountain pass. I rode back up the hill an hour later to look for it, but no luck. Then at the end of January, the big day arrived, and I had my surgery at the Huntsman's Cancer Institute. The surgery went great according to the doctors and nurses, and after a month-long recovery, I was good to go back to what I love doing, riding my motorcycle. Okay, that was the recap of Season 1. In this section of the video, I'm going to go over the problems I had with my gear and the solutions I found. If you're an adventure rider or just ride for fun, this section's going to be interesting. If not, it may be a little boring. Okay, so let's get started. The first issue I wanted to solve was my motorcycle riding range. In Season 1, I nearly ran out of gas several times, and carrying gas on the motorcycle can be dangerous. So I opted for replacing the stock 2.38 gallon fuel tank with a 4.5 gallon IMS fuel tank. After testing my MPG, I found that I averaged about 63 miles per gallon in rough terrain. So my riding range went from around 150 miles per tank to 280 miles per tank, a significant improvement. The next problem I was having was drone and controller accessibility. Getting the drone and controller in and out of my Peter McKinnon camera bag while it was strapped down to my Moscow Moto Reckless system was time consuming to the point that I had to decide if it was worth getting the drone shot at all. To solve this, I bought a Moscow Moto Nomax tank bag. This bag is awesome and not only holds my DJI Mavic 3 drone and controller, it also holds extra batteries and 2 liters of water. However, with the drone, controller, and extra batteries in the bag, the water pouch does not fit, so I removed it from the bag. Also, it's probably not a good idea to put $5,000 of drone, controller, and batteries on top of a water pouch. I was also having problems with a handlebar drone controller mount I bought from Sunny Life. The mount was constantly slipping forward and was made of cheap aluminum and tiny screws that stripped when I tried to tighten them. I was afraid that the drone controller would fall off completely and I would break a very expensive Pro controller. Another problem with this type of mount is that it was screwed on, so when I stopped to retrieve the drone, I had to unscrew it from the handlebars, which took time, and sometimes my drone's battery was low and it needed to land right away, so I ended up using the drone for less time as I had to account for the time it took to remove the drone from my handlebars to land the drone. Ultimately, I decided to stop using this mount and look for other options. I found a much better option when I bought a new quick-release drone controller mount from Thor's Drone World, which allows me to quickly release my controller to land my drone while providing a stable mount at the same time. It came in 2 components. The first was the quick-release attachment to my controller, and the second was the handlebar mount, which both fit together perfectly. The parts are made of high-quality metal and larger screws, and does not slip on my handlebars. Another problem that needed to be solved was navigation. I was using a Trailtech Voyager Pro GPS on my handlebars that I could load GPX map files on from an app called Strava. There were several problems with this. First, Strava is not meant for motorized vehicles, so it would show foot trails not accessible on a motorcycle. Second, it would not tell you if a road was privately owned or gated or even closed. Third, the Trailtech took up a lot of space on my handlebars. The reason I was using the Trailtech in the first place was because it worked offline, and in many of the places I ride, there is no cell phone reception. Also, it was wired into the battery, so it always had power. So I decided to scrap the Trailtech GPS system when I found a way to download offline Google Maps on my cell phone.
This is how to use Google Maps offline. First, open Google Maps. Next, tap your profile picture in the top right corner and select Offline Maps. Click Select Your Own Map, then zoom and pan around to find the exact region you want to save offline and click Download. Now you can search for locations, get driving directions, and use turn-by-turn navigation while you're offline.
Using my cell phone solved many problems. First, unlike Strava, Google Maps gives warnings for private roads, road closures, and will not route me on a foot trail. Second, using my cell phone in the Insta360 Ace Pro app allows me to see what my helmet cam is seeing, so I don't have the camera pointing too far up or down. Last season I shot many hours of video with my helmet cam pointed to the sky or at my tank as I could not see it on my helmet. And third, without a cell phone, I had to use the Insta360 voice control to start and stop recording on my helmet cam, and many times when I thought I was recording, I was not. And other times the camera was recording when I thought I wasn't.
Stop recording.
I needed a mount for my cell phone that would also charge it, so I bought a wireless charging mount from Quadlock. This mounted easily to my handlebars and provides power to my cell phone. It also allows me to mount the phone horizontally or vertically. An added benefit of using a cell phone instead of my Trail Tech was that it took up a lot less space on my handlebars, which led to a solution to my next problem. With the extra room on my handlebars, I was able to install a back-facing camera to get more camera angles while riding. The first selfie stick and mount I bought were cheap, and the camera tilted left and right and wobbled a lot. So I bought a new K&F Concept M507 heavy-duty selfie stick and an Insta360 handlebar mount. This selfie stick and mount proved to be a lot sturdier. The advantage of using this selfie stick and mount is that when I'm not using it, it can be lowered so as not to be in my helmet cam footage. And when using an Insta360 Ace Pro camera, you can flip up the backward facing screen to make sure your shot is framed right. Yet another problem that needed to be solved was that when recording with my helmet camera, the battery would only last for about 40 minutes with the camera on. Whether it was recording or not, then it would turn off. That far outlasted my 1 terabyte micro SD card, so to solve this, I bought a Jinpin solar battery charger, which plugs directly into my Insta360 Ace Pro 2 helmet camera via USB cable, giving hours of camera on time. This solar charger also serves as a battery charger for many of my USB devices and has a flashlight. With all of my problems solved, I'm ready for Season 2 of New Adventure Films, and with a list of 12 new scenic and wild riding locations all over Utah, anything could happen. That is, if it ever stops snowing and raining here. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it or found it helpful, please like and subscribe.